He walked into the garage wearing dirty clothes and asked to fix the car in exchange for food. Everyone laughed, called him crazy, until he put his hands on the engine and showed them who he really was. The sun beat down hard on the asphalt as Roger approached Premium Motors. His clothes were filthy, his hair disheveled, and the smell of someone who'd slept on the streets clung to him like an invisible mark. But his eyes, despite being tired, had a different gleam, a gleam that nobody there knew how to recognize. Bruno was hunched over the engine of a silver Mercedes, sweating and cursing under his breath. Beside him, two other mechanics, Claude and Robert, watched, trying to help. The car's owner, Marianne, was leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, clearly nervous but trying to maintain her composure. "I can't believe this is happening," she muttered, running her hand through her hair. "I need this car running today." Bruno lifted his head, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. "Ma'am, I'm doing everything I can. I've never seen a problem like this. The engine starts, but has no power whatsoever. Have you tried everything?" she asked, trying to control the anxiety in her voice. "Everything we know," Claude replied, shaking his head. "We've changed spark plugs, filters, cleaned the injectors. Nothing works." It was at that moment Roger approached slowly, his flip-flops making a muffled sound on the garage floor. The three mechanics looked at him with a mixture of surprise and discomfort. Marianne frowned but said nothing. "Excuse me," Roger said, his voice hoarse but polite. "Can I take a look at the engine?" Bruno let out a dry laugh. "Take a look? You understand mechanics." "I understand a little," Roger replied simply. Robert started laughing too. "A little? Dude, this is a Mercedes, not a pickup truck." "I know it's a Mercedes," Roger said calmly. "C300 model, 2-liter turbo engine. I heard the sound when she arrived. The problem isn't where you're looking." Claude looked at Bruno with an expression of disbelief. Now the homeless guy became a Mercedes expert? Marianne shifted uncomfortably. Something about Roger's calm confidence bothered her, but not in a negative way. It was as if he really knew what he was talking about. "Listen here." Bruno stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. "I don't know where you came from, but this is a professional garage. We don't need help from people like me," Roger completed without hurt in his voice. "That's not what I meant," Bruno lied, clearly embarrassed. "Yes, it was—" Robert didn't have the same restraint. "Man, you need a shower, not to mess with rich people's cars." Marianne pushed away from the wall. "Guys, let's take it easy." "Ma'am, you don't need to worry," Claude said. "We'll solve this. Just need more time." Roger observed the open engine, his eyes scanning each component with a precision none of them noticed. "Can I run a test just to confirm a suspicion?" he asked. "What suspicion?" Bruno asked. Try not to sound interested. "The problem is in the electronic control unit. It's not mechanical, it's electronic. That's why you can't find it." Robert grabbed his phone and started filming. "Guys, check this out." The homeless guy became an expert in electronic injection. Robert stopped at, Marian asked, but he kept filming. "No way, let me record this. This will get some good laughs to post later." Claude laughed too. "Post it. Homeless guy gives mechanics lesson at Premium Garage." Roger wasn't shaken by the laughter. He'd heard worse in life. "If you give me a chance, I can fix it in a few minutes." "In exchange for what?" Bruno asked sarcastically. $100 bill? "In exchange for a sandwich," Roger said simply. "Anything. I'm just hungry." The answer caught everyone by surprise. Robert almost dropped his phone from laughing so hard. "A sandwich, man? Are you serious?" "I am," Roger confirmed. "And I can guarantee I'll solve the problem you've been trying to fix for hours." Bruno looked at Marianne, who seemed thoughtful. She approached Roger, looking him in the eyes. "You really understand this?" "I do, ma'am." "How do you know it's a problem in the electronic control unit?" Roger pointed to the engine. "By the sound it makes. It's a specific noise when the camshaft position sensor is sending the wrong signal to the control unit. It cuts the injection as a safety measure." Marianne looked at Bruno. "Did you check that?" "We checked everything," Bruno replied, but his voice came out less confident. "No, you didn't," Roger said calmly. You look for mechanical problems. But modern cars are computer-controlled. When a sensor fails, the car goes into protection mode. Robert kept filming. Guys, this is too good. The guy is giving a lesson to professional mechanics. Robert, for God's sake, stop filming. Marian asked again, this time more firmly. Oh, come on, ma'am. This is going to get so many laughs. Bruno approached Roger. Okay, let's suppose you're right. How do you fix it? I need to access the injection control unit with a scanner, reset the parameters, and calibrate the sensor. We don't have a scanner here, Claude said. I know where there is one, Roger replied. At the shop next door. The owner knows me. Bruno and Robert exchanged ironic looks. Of course he knows you. Marianne continued observing Roger. There was something about him that intrigued her. The way he spoke, the quiet confidence, the technical knowledge. It didn't seem like the talk of someone who was making things up. And if it doesn't work? She asked. If it doesn't work, you don't owe me anything, not even the sandwich. And if it works, then you get me something to eat. That's it. Bruno let out an exaggerated sigh. Fine, but when it doesn't work, you leave and don't bother us anymore. Deal, Roger nodded. Robert kept filming everything. This is going to be epic. The homeless guy trying to fix a Mercedes. Roger walked to the shop next door. It was a simpler place, less luxurious, where a man worked alone. He greeted the owner with familiarity and returned with scanner in hand. Where did you get that? Bruno asked suspiciously. Mr. Fernando lent it to me, Roger replied, connecting the device to the car. Marianne watched his every move. There was something familiar about the way he handled tools, a precision she recognized but couldn't place. The scanner began beeping while Roger navigated through the menus with an ease that impressed even Bruno. In a few minutes, he found the error code. Here it is, he murmured. Phase, sensor, camshaft, intermittent signal. How did you know? Marianne asked, genuinely impressed. Roger didn't answer. He was focused on the work, resetting codes and recalibrating parameters. His hands moved with surgical precision, as if that technology were a natural extension of his body. Claude stopped laughing when he saw how easily Roger operated the scanner. Robert was still filming, but now with less mockery and more curiosity. Done, Roger said, disconnecting the device. You can start the car. Bruno went to the steering wheel, turned the key, and the engine caught smoothly, purring perfectly. He pressed the accelerator, and the response was immediate. The silence that fell over the garage was awkward. Marian got in the car, drove around the block, and came back with her eyes wide. I've never seen this car run so well. It feels like new. Roger was already putting away the scanner to return it. There you go, ma'am. Problem solved. How did you learn this? Bruno asked, the arrogance gone from his voice. Roger hesitated. I've worked with cars my whole life. Where? Several places, he replied evasively. Can I get that sandwich now? Marianne approached him, something stirring in her chest. What's your name? Roger. Roger what? He hesitated again. Just Roger. Robert would still hold his phone, but didn't know if he should post a video anymore. What had started as mockery had turned into something completely different. Bruno extended a bill to Roger. Take this. You deserve more than a sandwich. I don't need it, Roger refused. That's what we agreed on. Man, you just solved in minutes what we couldn't do all day. Marian opened her purse and took out money. Please accept it. You saved my day. Roger shook his head. I just wanted to help. Why? She asked. Why did you want to help people who treated you badly? Roger looked at her, and for a second, Marianne saw a deep sadness in those eyes, an old pain he carried like an invisible scar. Because everyone deserves a second chance, he said simply, and walked away slowly, leaving behind a silent garage and 4 people who didn't know they had just met a legend. Days later, Roger returned to wander around the Premium Motors area. Not because he was looking for work. He already knew he wouldn't be welcome. But something pulled him back to that place. Maybe it was a memory of when his hands touched an engine again, when for a few minutes he was who he used to be. The garage was busy. Several luxury cars occupied the spaces, and Roger could hear the sound of tools and conversations coming from inside. He hid behind a tree on the opposite sidewalk, watching from afar. Bruno was hunched over a red BMW, clearly frustrated. Even from a distance, Roger could tell by the abrupt gestures and tense posture that things weren't going well. Claude and Robert circled around the car, but seemed more lost than Bruno himself. "This can't be happening again," Bruno muttered loud enough for neighbors to hear. "Third car this week we can't fix." An elegant man wearing an expensive suit approached the BMW. He was the car's owner, Dr. Henry, a well-known lawyer in the city. "How's the progress?" he asked, trying to maintain cordiality but with clear irritation in his voice. "Dr. Henry, we're almost there," Bruno lied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Just one more adjustment." "One more adjustment? You've been saying that for 2 days. I need my car working." Robert discreetly stepped away and grabbed his phone. "Man, I'm going to film this. Bruno's losing it." "Stop that," Claude whispered, but Robert was already recording. Roger watched everything from afar, his experienced eyes identifying the problem just by the irregular engine sound. It was a matter of a poorly calibrated part, something he'd solve in minutes, but he knew it was pointless to approach. He still remembered the laughter, the mockery, the way he was treated. A young woman arrived by taxi, carrying a child. It was Fernanda, Dr. Henry's wife. The child, a small boy, was crying softly. "Henry, did you manage to fix it?" she asked worriedly. "Pedro has a fever. I need to take him to the hospital." Dr. Henry looked at Bruno with an expression mixing desperation and contained rage. "They're working on it." Bruno felt the pressure increase. "Ma'am, Fernanda, we'll solve it now. Just a few more minutes." "A few minutes? You said the same thing yesterday and the day before." Dr. Henry exploded. "My son is sick. I need the car." The tension in the garage became palpable. Other customers began approaching. Curious about the argument, Robert kept filming, now with more interest. "Guys, check it out. Drama at the Premium Garage," he whispered his phone. Claude tried to calm the situation. "Dr. Henry, we'll manage to solve it. It's just a matter of time." "Time? Time is what my son doesn't have," the lawyer shouted. Fernanda began to cry, pressing the boy against her chest. "Henry, call an Uber. We can't wait anymore." "An Uber at this time is hard to get," he replied, running his hand through his hair. Roger saw the child crying in his mother's arms and felt his chest tighten. He remembered his own daughter, the desperate rushes to the hospital, the feeling of helplessness when a car broke down on the way. He couldn't stay put. He crossed the street slowly, knowing he'd probably be thrown out again, but unable to watch a child suffer. "Excuse me," he said, approaching. Bruno lifted his head, and his expression changed immediately. "Oh no, not now. What does he want here?" "Who's that?" Dr. Henry asked, looking at Roger with contempt. "Nobody important," Bruno replied quickly. "Just someone who shows up here sometimes." Roger ignored the insults and went straight to the point. "Can I take a look at the car? The child needs to go to the hospital." "You!" Dr. Henry laughed bitterly. "You're going to solve what 3 professional mechanics couldn't?" "I can try," Roger said. Fernanda looked at Roger desperately. "You understand cars?" "A little," he replied modestly. "A little?" Robert laughed loudly. "Man, this is a guy who fixed Mrs. Marianne's Mercedes the other day. Thought he was a mechanic." "He fixed it," Dr. Henry frowned. Bruno turned red. "He got lucky. It was a coincidence." "Coincidence?" Roger asked calmly. "The camshaft sensor was really defective, wasn't it?" Bruno didn't know what to answer. The truth was he had tested the sensor after Roger left and discovered it really was failing. "Let him try," Fernanda begged, looking at her husband. "For God's sake, Henry, our son is sick." "Fernanda, this is ridiculous." "He's a—" "What?" she interrupted. "A person who offered to help when our son needs it." Roger approached the BMW and put his hand on the running engine. He closed his eyes, feeling the vibrations, listening to every sound. It was as if the car was talking to him, telling him where the problem was. "The fuel pump is failing," he said. "It's simply not maintaining constant pressure. That's why the engine chokes." Bruno looked at him amazed. How can you know that just by listening? Experience, Roger replied. They connected the equipment, and the reading confirmed exactly what Roger had said. The pressure oscillated when it should be constant. I can't believe it, Robert murmured. Still filming. He got it right again. Dr. Henry looked at Roger with a completely different expression. Can you fix this? I can, but I need a new pump. It's not a repair you do on the spot. Where do you get the part? At the auto parts store on the corner. Costs around $300. Bruno stepped forward. Dr. Henry, I can go get the part right now. How long to install? The lawyer asked Roger. 15 minutes. Fernanda looked at her husband with tears in her eyes. Henry, please. Dr. Henry took money from his wallet and handed it to Bruno. Run, go get that pump now. Bruno ran off. Robert kept filming everything, now completely fascinated by the situation. While they waited, Fernanda approached Roger. Thank you, she said simply. I don't know who you are, but thank you for helping. Roger nodded, looking at the child who had stopped crying and now watched him with curiosity. What's his name? Pedro. He's 3 years old. He'll be fine, Roger said, making a funny face at the boy, who smiled for the first time. Dr. Henry observed the interaction in silence. There was something about that man that didn't make sense. The way he spoke, how he moved, the technical knowledge. It didn't match his neglected appearance. Can I ask where you learn mechanics? He questioned. Roger hesitated. I worked with cars for a long time. At what garage? Various garages, he replied evasively. Bruno returned running with the new pump. Got it. This is the right one. Roger examined the part. Exactly this one. I'll install it now. And he began to work. His hands moved with impressive precision, as if he knew every bolt in that engine. He removed the old pump in a few minutes, installed a new one, connected the hoses. Done, he said, wiping his hands. You can start it. Dr. Henry started the engine, and it purred perfectly. He pressed the accelerator, and the response was immediate and smooth. Unbelievable, he murmured. Fernanda got in the car with Pedro in her lap. Henry, let's go. We need to get to the hospital. Before getting in, Dr. Henry approached Roger. How much do you charge for the service? Nothing. I just wanted to help the child. Nothing? The lawyer repeated incredulously. You just saved my son and don't want anything in return? Roger looked at the boy in the back seat, who now seemed more animated. I already got my payment. Dr. Henry took a business card from his pocket. My name is Henry Almeida. If you ever need anything, call me. Thank you, doctor. The lawyer got in the car and sped off toward the hospital. Robert was still filming. Man, that was surreal. Nobody's going to believe this. Bruno approached Roger, clearly embarrassed. How do you manage to do this? Do what? Diagnose problems just by listening. I've worked with cars for years and never seen anything like it. Roger didn't answer. He started to walk away, but Bruno followed him. Wait, you can't just leave like that. Who are you really? Roger stopped and turned. For a moment, his eyes revealed a deep, ancient sadness, someone who had once been much more than he was today. And he disappeared into the street crowd, leaving Bruno standing there with more questions and answers. The video Robert had recorded at the garage was causing a stir on social media. He had posted it with the title, Homeless Man Fixes Cars Better Than Professional Mechanics. In a few days, it already had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. Most people doubted its authenticity, but some comments caught attention. This guy reminds me of someone, wrote one user. The way he works on the engine, his hands. I've seen this before. Impossible to be coincidence with so much precision, commented another. This man has history. Marianne also saw the video. She was at home browsing her phone when the recording appeared on her timeline. She watched it 3 times in a row, paying attention to Roger's every movement, every word he spoke. There was something familiar about that voice, that way of working. She remembered her own father, who had left when she was only 15. He also drank a lot, had also lost everything because of alcohol. But before drinking destroyed his life, he was a mechanic, an exceptional mechanic who fixed impossible cars, and always talked about a legendary pilot from the 90s. Golden hands, she murmured, remembering the expression her father used. He always talked about a guy called Golden Hands. Curiosity consumed her. The next day, Marianne returned to Premium Motors. She found Bruno hunched over another car, clearly frustrated. Claude and Robert were beside him, as lost as their boss. "Problems again?" she asked, approaching. Bruno lifted his head, surprised. "Mrs. Marianne, you came back?" "I came to ask about that man who fixed my car. Do you know anything about him?" Robert got excited. "Did you see my video? It already has over 50,000 views. I saw it, and I'm curious. What do you think he learned so much about cars?" Bruno shook his head. "I have no idea, but I can tell you one thing. I've never seen anyone diagnose problems like that. It's like he talks to the engine." "Talks how?" "He touches it, closes his eyes, and in seconds knows exactly what's wrong. It's not normal." Marianne felt a chill. "My father did that. Said every engine has its own voice." "Your father was a mechanic?" Claude asked. "He was, and he always talked about a pilot from the 90s. Someone who, besides racing, understood engines better than any engineer." Robert stopped what he was doing. "A pilot from the 90s? Like how?" "He said there was a guy who was a legend. Won races because besides driving well, he adjusted the car himself. They called him something related to hands." Bruno's eyes widened. "Golden hands." "That's it. Golden hands." "Do you know him?" Bruno asked. "My father was crazy about motorsports. Always talked about this guy. Roger Silva, known as Golden Hands, rally champion in the 90s. The silence that fell over the garage was heavy as lead. "Roger Silva," Marianne repeated slowly. "The homeless man who fixed my car is named Roger." "It can't be," Robert whispered. "It can't be the same guy." "Why not?" she asked. "Because Roger Silva was a millionaire, had his own team, international sponsorship. Why would he be living on the streets?" Bruno grabbed his phone and started searching. "I'm going to look for old photos of him." While he typed, Marianne felt her heart racing. If it really was who she was thinking, the story would be much sadder than she imagined. "Found it," Bruno said, showing his phone. "Roger Silva, Brazilian rally champion in 1995, 1997, and 1999. On the screen appeared a photo of a younger man holding a trophy and smiling beside a race car. Even with dark hair and a clean-shaven face, it was impossible not to recognize the eyes. The same tired eyes that had fixed Marianne's Mercedes. "My God," she whispered. "It's him. It's really him." "But what happened?" Claude asked. "How did a world champion become homeless?" Bruno continued reading. "It says here that in 2009, he lost his wife and daughter in a car accident. After that, he disappeared from the automotive scene." Marianne felt her eyes fill with tears. The story was even worse than she had imagined. "He lost his family and apparently lost everything else," Robert completed, reading over Bruno's shoulder. "It says he sold his team, left competitions, and never appeared publicly again. That was 15 years ago." Bruno calculated. "All this time, where has he been?" "On the streets," Marianne replied, her voice choked with emotion, trying to process the pain. She remembered her own father again, how alcohol had been his refuge after losing his job and self-esteem, how he had sunk deeper and deeper, losing his family, house, dignity, and how she, just a teenager at the time, didn't know how to help. "We need to find him," she said determinedly. "Why?" Robert asked. "To help, to give him a second chance." Bruno looked at her skeptically. "Mrs. Marianne, with all due respect, the man has been on the streets for years. If he wanted help, he would have looked for it." "You don't understand," she replied, wiping a tear. "My father was also lost, also drank too much, also lived on the streets at the end. And I was too young, too scared to help. He left without me being able to do anything." The garage fell silent. Marianne continued, her voice trembling with emotion. If I can't save my father anymore, at least I can try to save someone going through the same situation. Robert put away his phone, clearly touched by the story. You're right, ma'am. We need to find him. But where? Claude asked. He shows up here sometimes, but we don't know where he lives. He lives on the street, Bruno said. Probably sleeps somewhere around here. Marianne stood up. Let's look for him. Do you know the spots where homeless people usually stay? There's a square 3 blocks from here, Robert suggested. And there's an overpass where I always see people sleeping. Then let's go now. Bruno hesitated. Mrs. Marianne, maybe it's better to wait for him to show up here again. No, she was firm. Every day that passes is one more day of suffering for him. My father waited for help that never came. I won't let this happen again. The 4 left the garage and walked to the square. It was mid-afternoon and some homeless people were sitting on benches, enjoying the shade of the trees. Marianne approached an elderly gentleman. Excuse me, do you know a man named Roger, graying hair, about 50 years old? The man looked suspicious. Know him? I know him. Why? Did he do something? No, nothing like that. We want to help him. Help. The man laughed without humor. Nobody helps anybody here, lady. Everyone for themselves. Please, Marianne insisted. It's important. Where can I find him? The man studied her face, looking for signs of bad intentions. Apparently satisfied with what he saw, he pointed in a direction. He usually stays under the overpass on Central Avenue. But be careful, lady. Roger's not like the others. He has history, and history hurts. What history? She asked. Don't know exactly. I just know that sometimes he drinks and cries talking about a little girl, a daughter he lost. It's heartbreaking. Marianne felt her chest tighten. The daughter who had died in the accident. The pain he'd been carrying for so many years. Thank you, she said to the man, and turned to mechanics. Let's go to the overpass. They walked in silence there. Under the concrete structure were several makeshift tents and people living in precarious conditions. The smell of urine and garbage was strong, but Marianne wasn't intimidated. Roger, she called. Roger, are you there? No response. They walked among the tents, searching. It was Robert who found him, sitting alone in a secluded corner, holding an empty bottle and looking at a crumpled photo. There, he whispered to the others. Marianne approached slowly. Roger was different from the confident man who had fixed her car. He was broken, vulnerable, lost in his own sadness. Roger, she called softly. He looked up, took a few seconds to recognize her. The Mercedes lady. That's right. Can I sit? He nodded yes, quickly put away the photo in his pocket. But Marianne managed to see enough. It was the image of a smiling little girl, probably the daughter he had lost. I came looking for you, she said, sitting on the ground beside him. Why? Because I discovered who you are. Roger tensed. I'm nobody important. Yes, you are. You're Roger Silva, Golden Hands. The silence that followed was loaded with pain. Roger closed his eyes, as if hearing his own name was a wound that never healed. I was, he said finally, I was that a long time ago, and you can be again. I can't. He shook his head. Not after what happened. Not after losing everything that mattered. Marianne felt tears running down her cheeks. I know what it's like to lose someone we love. I lost my father to alcohol when I was a teenager, and since then I asked myself every day if I could have done something different. Roger looked at her for the first time with real attention. I don't want to carry that weight again, she continued. I don't want to look back and know I found someone who needed help and did nothing. Why do you care? He asked, his voice hoarse. Because when I look at you, I see my father. I see a good man who got lost in pain, and this time I'm in position to help. Roger looked at Bruno, Claude, and Robert, who had approached and watched the conversation in silence. All of you came looking for me? We did, Bruno replied. We want to offer you a chance to start over. Start over? Roger laughed bitterly. You don't understand. You can't come back from where I am. Yes, you can, Marianne said firmly. With help, with treatment, with people who believe in you. Roger took the photo from his pocket and looked at it with infinite sadness. She was 8 years old when she left. 8 years of life ahead of her. And because of me... It wasn't your fault, Marianne interrupted. I was driving. If I had been more careful, if I had paid more attention. His voice broke. Accidents happen, she said softly. But living the rest of your life punishing yourself won't bring them back. Roger looked at his daughter's photo one more time, then at Marianne. For an instant, she saw a glimpse of the man he had been, of the champion who faced any challenge, who never gave up. "Were you proposing?" he asked. Bruno stepped forward. "Work at the garage as head mechanic. Fair salary. Signed contract. And I," Marianne completed, "can pay for treatment to help you with drinking. A place to live, new clothes, a complete fresh start." Roger remained silent for long minutes, processing the proposal. Finally, he looked at his daughter's photo one more time. "She always said I was capable of fixing anything broken," he murmured. "Maybe it's time to try to fix myself." And for the first time in years, Roger Silva smiled. Weeks after that encounter under the overpass, Roger was sitting in the waiting room of a rehabilitation clinic. His hands trembled slightly, not just from withdrawal effects, but from the anxiety of being in a medical environment again. The last time he'd stepped into a hospital was to say goodbye to his wife and daughter. Marianne was beside him, flipping through a magazine without really reading. She could feel the tension radiating from the man she had decided to help. Bruno was also there, nervous, checking his phone every 5 minutes. Mr. Roger Silva. A nurse called from the door. Roger stood up slowly, his legs still weak. Marianne made a motion to accompany him, but he shook his head. "I need to do this alone," he said, his voice hoarse but determined. The consultation lasted 2 hours. When Roger came out, he was visibly shaken. The psychiatrist had touched old wounds, forced him to talk about his daughter, about the accident, about all the years lost to drinking. "How was it?" Marianne asked softly. "Difficult," he replied, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "But necessary." On the way back, they passed by Premium Motors. Unusual movement caught their attention. There were 3 luxury cars parked in front and a small crowd gathering on the sidewalk. "What's happening?" Bruno murmured, quickening his pace. When they got closer, they saw Claude and Robert gesticulating desperately around a red Ferrari. The car's owner, a businessman known in the city named Marcus Augustine, was visibly irritated. "You don't understand," he said loudly. "This car needs to be running today. I have a crucial presentation for international investors. If I don't get there, I lose a $50 million contract." "Mr. Marcus, we're doing everything possible," Claude tried to calm him. "We've never seen a problem like this. Everything possible isn't enough. I called 3 different mechanics. None could solve it. This garage was recommended as the best in the city." Robert was sweating bullets. "Sir, we can try a few more things." "A few more things? You've been at this for 6 hours. My presentation is in 2 hours." The situation was becoming unbearable. Other customers began questioning whether they should leave their cars there. The garage's reputation was hanging by a thread. That's when someone in the crowd recognized Roger. "Hey, aren't you the guy from the video?" a young person asked. "The guy who fixes cars?" Everyone turned to look. Robert turned red with embarrassment, remembering he had been the one who posted the video. Marcus looked Roger up and down with disdain. "This is the famous miracle mechanic? A homeless man." "Mr. Marcus." Bruno tried to intervene. "He really understands a lot about cars." "Understands? My car is worth $2 million. You think I'm going to let a recovering alcoholic mess with your expensive toy?" Roger completed, his voice calm, but with a hint of pain. The silence was awkward. Marcus realized he had been cruel, but pride wouldn't let him back down. "That's not what I meant," he lied. "Yes, it was," Roger replied. "And you're right to be suspicious. I am everything you're thinking, but I also know your car has a problem with the direct injection system. Probably one of the injectors clogged with high-octane fuel residue." Marcus was speechless. "How can you know that just by looking?" "I don't need to look." I heard the sound when you tried to start earlier. It's a specific sound when the air-fuel mixture isn't homogeneous. Claude approached Bruno and whispered, "He's right. We tried everything except checking the injectors." Bruno was torn. He knew Roger could solve it, but also understood the client's concern. A Ferrari wasn't just any car. "Mr. Marcus," Marianne approached. "Can I speak with you privately?" They moved a few meters away. The crowd watched curiously. "Sir, I'm Marianne Fernandez from Fernandez Development." She introduced herself. "This man fixed my car when no one else could, and I can guarantee that if he says he knows what the problem is, he knows." "But, ma'am, look at him. How can I trust him?" "For the same reason I trusted him," she replied. "Because sometimes appearances deceive, and because you don't have much time or many options." Marcus looked at his watch. There was little more than an hour until his presentation. If he went by taxi, he'd arrive late and sweaty. If he took an Uber, he risked getting stuck in traffic. "If he damages something on my car," he began. "I take full responsibility," Marianne said. "Any damage, I'll pay. Any damage to Ferrari could exceed $100,000. "I'll pay," she repeated without hesitation. Marcus took a deep breath. "All right, but if it's not fixed in 30 minutes, I stop everything." Roger approached the Ferrari like someone approaching an old friend. His hands, which had trembled at the clinic earlier, were now steady and sure. He opened the hood and immediately located the problem. "I need a specific wrench to remove the injectors," he told Bruno. "We don't have that wrench," Bruno replied, worried. "I do," said a voice behind them. Everyone turned. It was Mr. Fernando, owner of the simple garage next door, holding a toolbox. "I heard about the commotion here and brought my special tools," he said with a smile. "Roger, you'll need the 8mm star wrench and the magnetic Phillips." "Thank you, Fernando," Roger said, taking the tools. The crowd gathered to watch. Robert started filming again, this time with more respect than mockery. Marcus checked his watch every few minutes, sweating nervously. Roger worked with surgical precision, removing the fuel injectors one by one, examining each under the light, and identifying exactly what was causing the problem. One of the injectors was partially obstructed by microscopic residue. "We need to clean this with ultrasound," he said. "But there's no time to take it to a specialized shop." "And now?" Marcus asked, desperation growing his voice. Roger thought for a few seconds. "There's a homemade solution. It's not ideal, but it works." "What solution?" "Isopropyl alcohol and an ultrafine bristle brush. With patience, I can clean it manually." "How long?" 15 minutes. Marcus looked at his watch once more. It was still possible to make the presentation if everything went right. "Do it," he said. Mr. Fernando ran to his garage and returned with the materials. Roger began the most delicate work of his life. Every movement had to be perfect. One wrong pressure, one clumsy gesture, and the $50,000 injector would be lost. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Even the children playing on the sidewalk stopped to watch. Bruno was so tense he could barely breathe. Marianne watched Roger's hands and remembered the stories her father told about exceptional mechanics. "Some people are born for this," he used to say. "Their hands know what to do before their head even thinks." After 12 minutes of meticulous work, Roger reinstalled the clean injector in the engine. "Done," he said simply. Marcus ran to the car and started the ignition. The engine purred perfectly, smooth as silk. He pressed the accelerator, and the response was instant and powerful. "Unbelievable," he murmured, getting out of the car. "I've never seen this Ferrari run so well." The crowd erupted in applause. Robert filmed everything, knowing he had another video that would surely go viral. Marcus approached Roger, clearly embarrassed. "Sir, I need to apologize. I judged you without knowing you." "No need to apologize," Roger replied. "You acted with caution. It's normal." "Normal nothing." Marcus took his wallet from his pocket. "How much do I owe for the service?" "Nothing. I just wanted to help." "Nothing? You just saved a $50 million contract. Accept at least this." He extended some bills. Roger hesitated. Looking at Mary Ann, she made a discreet sign for him to accept. "Thank you," he said, taking the money. Marcus got in the Ferrari and left, but not before shouting to the window, "If you ever need anything, look for me. Marcus Augustine. Everyone knows me in the city." The crowd began to disperse, but several people approached Roger. Some wanted to hire his services, others just to congratulate him. "Mr. Roger," an elderly lady approached. "Could you take a look at my car? It's not running right." "I also have a problem," said another man. "The mechanics say there's no fix, but after what I saw here." In a few minutes, there was a line of people wanting to speak with Roger. Bruno watched the scene, impressed. "Man," Robert said to him, "I think we just found the solution to all the garage's problems." Marion approached Roger, who was clearly overwhelmed with so much attention. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "I am," he replied, but she could see he was emotional. "It's been a long time since I felt useful." "You were always useful," she said. "You just needed an opportunity to show it." Roger looked at the line of people waiting to speak with him, then at Bruno, Claude, and Robert, who watched him with genuine respect. For the first time in 15 years, he felt part of something again. "I think I'm ready to accept that job offer," he said to Bruno. Bruno smiled. The position of head mechanic is still available. And at that moment, standing in front of Premium Motors, surrounded by people who finally saw him for what he really was, Roger Silva began to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for him. Months after the Ferrari episode, Roger's life had changed completely, but not in the way everyone expected. The treatment at the clinic was proving harder than any broken engine he'd ever fixed. Some nights he woke up in cold sweats, shaking, calling out the names of his wife and daughter. Mary Ann had rented a small apartment for him near the garage, but Roger could barely sleep in a bed after so much time on the streets. He spent the early morning hours sitting on the balcony, looking at the stars and fighting the urge to drink. Work at Premium Motors was going well. Too well, actually. Roger's fame had spread throughout the entire city. Robert's YouTube videos already had over 500,000 views each, and people traveled from neighboring cities just to see the miracle mechanic work. Bruno was thrilled with the business, but also worried. Roger arrived punctually every day, solved the most impossible problems with ease, but always with that distant look, as if part of him was still lost somewhere. "Roger." Bruno approached him one morning. "Can I talk to you?" Roger was hunched over a Porsche, his hands working automatically while his mind seemed elsewhere. "Sure, Bruno. How are you feeling?" "Really?" Roger stopped what he was doing and looked at the young man. "Why do you ask?" "Because you're different. You solve everything, work perfectly, but it seems like you're carrying the world on your shoulders." "I am carrying it," Roger replied simply. 15 years of guilt don't disappear in a few months. Claude came running. "Guys, there's a situation outside." A guy arrived with a bulletproof BMW, all beaten up. Says it's urgent. Roger and Bruno went out to see. In the garage courtyard was a black BMW X6 with bulletproof glass, but it was visibly damaged. The engine made a strange noise, as if something was loose inside. A well-dressed but visibly nervous man got out of the car. It was Dr. Henry, the lawyer who had appeared months ago with the sick child. Only now he was different. Sweaty, looking around, clearly panicked. "Dr. Henry," Bruno recognized. "Aren't you the father of the boy who—" "It's me," he interrupted. "And I urgently need your help, especially Mr. Rogers." Roger approached. "What happened?" "It's a long story." Dr. Henry took a deep breath. "I'm receiving threats because of a case I'm defending. They tried to follow me this morning. During the escape, I pushed the car too hard, and now it's making this noise." "Threats?" Marion had arrived at that moment and heard the conversation. "What kind of threats?" "I'm defending a family who lost their son in an accident caused by a drunk businessman. The guy has a lot of power, a lot of influence, and doesn't want to be convicted." Roger felt his chest tighten. An accident caused by drunk driving. The story touched a wound that still bled. "I need the car to be working perfectly," Dr. Henry continued. "Tonight, I have a crucial meeting with witnesses. If they agree to testify, we get justice for that family. And if you can't make it to the meeting? Bruno asked. The case dies and the family will never get the justice they deserve. Roger opened the BMW's hood and immediately frowned. The problem was serious. During the high-speed escape, the engine had suffered internal damage. It would be necessary to dismantle almost everything. How much time do you have? He asked. 6 hours. The meeting is at 7 p.m. Bruno and Claude looked at each other. 6 hours for a repair that magnitude was impossible. Roger, Bruno whispered, this will take at least 2 days. There's no way to do it in 6 hours. Roger looked at Dr. Henry, saw the desperation in his eyes, and remembered the child he had helped save months ago. He also remembered the families who never got justice, the lives lost to drunk drivers who went unpunished. I'll try, he said. Try. Dr. Henry asked hopefully. I won't be able to do it alone. It'll need the whole team working together. Bruno didn't hesitate. Whatever you need, you can count on me. And me? Claude joined in. Me too, Robert said, already grabbing his phone to film. This is going to be epic. Marianne approached Roger. What can I do to help? Can you get Parts Express? I'll need components that might not be available here. I'm already calling, she said, grabbing her phone. What happened in the next 6 hours was something no one at the garage would ever forget. Roger transformed into a conductor leading an orchestra. Every movement was calculated. Every decision was precise. Bruno, dismantle the cylinder head while I work on the engine block, he commanded. Claude, clean all parts with heavy degreaser. Robert, stop filming and help me hold this tool. The work was intense, almost frantic. Roger had entered a zone of total concentration, like a surgeon operating on a heart. His hands moved with precision that mesmerized anyone watching. How does he know where every bolt goes? A waiting customer asked, amazed. Experience, Bruno replied, sweaty but admiring. 30 years working with engines. Marianne arrived running with the order parts. I got everything. The supplier said he'd never seen anyone order such specific parts like this. Thank you, Roger said without lifting his eyes from the engine. The hours passed, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Dr. Henry paced back and forth, nervous, constantly checking his watch. Will it be ready in time? He asked for the 10th time. It will, Roger replied. But Bruno could see he was at his physical limit. Working for 4 hours straight, his hands were beginning to tremble slightly. Roger, Bruno approached. Want me to finish this part? No, he replied firmly. If it's going to be done, it has to be perfect. People's lives depend on this. Robert, who had stopped filming to help, watched fascinated. Man, this isn't normal work. This is art. 6:30 p.m. Half an hour until the deadline. Roger was installing the last parts when his hand slipped and he dropped a small but essential bolt. Damn, he muttered, desperately searching on the floor. Found it, Claude shouted, grabbing the piece from under a tool. 6:50 p.m. 10 minutes until deadline. Roger closed the hood and turned to Dr. Henry. You can test it. The lawyer ran to the car, started the ignition, and the engine purred perfectly. He pressed the accelerator, and the response was smooth, powerful, as if the car were brand new. Unbelievable, he murmured, getting out of the car. How did you manage to do this in 6 hours? Bruno looked at Roger, who was leaning on the workbench, visibly exhausted. It wasn't us. It was him. Dr. Henry approached Roger. Sir, I don't know how to thank you. You may have helped bring justice to a family that lost everything. I just did my job, Roger replied modestly. No, you performed a miracle. Dr. Henry got in the car and sped off toward the meeting. Everyone stood there, still processing what had happened. 6 hours. Bruno shook his head incredulously. We did in 6 hours what should have taken 2 days. Robert was looking at his phone. Guys, the Ferrari video just passed 1 million views. And look at these comments. He showed the screen. Hundreds of comments from people wanting to know more about the legendary mechanic. Others offering jobs. Some even recognizing Roger from his racing days. This guy is a living legend. Robert read a comment. Does anyone know where I can find this man? Roger Silva was dead to the world, but came back from the dead to save impossible cars. Marianne observed Roger, who had sat in a chair and was looking at his own hands. "How do you feel?" "Tired," he replied, "but useful. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I made a difference." "You did," she said, sitting beside him. "And not just today. Since you arrived here, you've changed everyone's life." "You changed ours too," Bruno added. "The garage has never worked so well. Customers trust our work because of you." Roger smiled, a small smile but genuine. "You saved me. Literally took me off the street and gave me a reason to live again." "You saved yourself," Marianne corrected. "We just gave you an opportunity." Robert put away his phone and approached the group. "Roger, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How do you manage to work like that, with that precision, that speed?" Roger remained silent for a few moments. "Because now there's a reason. Before, I raced to win trophies. Now I fix cars to save people. And what's the difference? All the difference in the world. When you work for something bigger than yourself, your hands find a strength you didn't even know existed." Bruno felt his eyes fill with tears. "Roger, you're an inspiration." "I'm not an inspiration. I'm just someone who learned it's never too late to start over." And at that moment, sitting in a simple garage, surrounded by people who had become his family, Roger Silva finally understood he had found his place in the world again. What Roger didn't know was that Dr. Henry's meeting had been a complete success. The witnesses agreed to testify. The case gained strength, and the drunk businessman was convicted. But there was more. During the trial, Dr. Henry told the story of the mechanic who would fix his car in record time, so he could make it to the meeting. The story spread first among lawyers, then among journalists, and finally reached social media. Someone connected the dots between Robert's videos and Roger Silva's real identity. It was a normal afternoon at the garage when everything changed. Bruno was working on a pickup when he saw a news van stop in front of Premium Motors. Then another, and another. "Roger," he called nervously, "I think we have a problem." Roger lifted his head from the engine he was fixing and saw reporters getting out of vans with cameras and microphones. He felt his blood freeze. "What do they want here?" he asked. Robert appeared running. "Man, it exploded on the internet. Someone discovered who you really are. It's on all the news portals." He showed his phone to Roger. The headline read, "Roger Goldenhand Silva is alive and working as a mechanic in Sao Paulo." Below the headline, an old photo of him holding a champion's trophy, and beside it a screenshot from Robert's video fixing the Ferrari. "How did they find out?" Roger asked, his voice trembling. "After that case you helped Dr. Henry with, the story leaked. Then they connected the videos, physical description, way of working. It wasn't hard to put together." The reporters were approaching. Roger felt panic rising. 15 years hidden from the world, and now everything was coming out at once. "Mr. Roger Silva," a reporter shouted, "is it true you're the 3-time Brazilian rally champion? Can you confirm you lived on the streets during these years? What happened after the accident that took your family?" The questions came like bullets. Roger backed up, pressing against the garage wall. Marianne came running and positioned herself in front of him. "Guys, let's take it easy," she asked. "You can't just invade like this." "Ma'am, we're from the press. We have the right to ask questions." "You have the right, but he has the right not to answer too." Bruno joined her, forming a human barrier. "Roger is working. If you want to talk to him, make an appointment." But the reporters wouldn't give up. "Mr. Silva, you disappeared from the automotive world after 2009. Where have you been all this time?" Roger looked at those eager faces. Cameras pointed at him and felt like he was being attacked. He remembered his last days as a pilot, when the press only wanted to know morbid details about the accident. "I have nothing to say," he said, trying to enter the garage. "But, sir, people want to know. You were a national idol." "I was," he repeated bitterly. "I'm not anymore." Claude closed the garage gate, but reporters stayed outside. In minutes, there was a real crowd on the sidewalk. Customers coming to drop off cars. Curious people wanted to see up close. Fans who remembered Roger's golden era. "This is going to be unbearable, Bruno said, peeking through the window. Robert was glued to his phone. Guys, the videos exploded. The Ferrari one already has 5 million views. And look at these comments. He showed the screen. Roger Silva saved my childhood. He was my hero in the 90s. What an inspiring story. A champion who never gave up helping people. Crying here, losing family like that, and still finding strength to start over. Marianne approached Roger, who was sitting in a chair with his head in his hands. How do you feel? Destroyed, he replied. So much time had passed. I thought nobody remembered anymore. They remembered, and now they know you didn't give up, that you found a new way to be a hero. Hero? He laughed without humor. Marianne, I'm a recovering alcoholic who lost everything through incompetence. You're a man who transformed pain into purpose, who uses talent to save people. Outside, the crowd was growing. An elderly man approached the gate and shouted, Roger, you saved me in 1998. I flipped on a curve in Campos do Jordão, and you stopped to get me out of the car. Roger lifted his head, surprised. Another man joined in. Roger Silva, my son was your fan. He passed away last year, but always talked about wanting to meet you. Roger, come back to the tracks. Brazil needs you. Bruno opened a crack in the gate and saw the crowd. They weren't just reporters. They were ordinary people, entire families, people who had been touched by the story. Roger, he said, I think you need to see this. Reluctantly, Roger approached the window. He saw dozens of people holding handwritten signs. Thank you for not giving up. You are our inspiration. Stay strong, champion. A woman held an old photo of him celebrating a victory. Beside her, her young son looked on with admiration. Why are they here? He asked, confused. Because your story touched everyone, Marian explained. You're not just an ex-pilot who became a mechanic. You're a symbol that it's possible to start over. Robert kept reading comments. Listen to this. My father was an alcoholic. After seeing Roger's story, he decided to seek help. Today he's been sober for 3 months. Roger felt his eyes fill with tears. And this one, Robert continued, I lost my job and was thinking about giving up everything. Golden Hand's story gave me strength to keep fighting. Roger, Marianne took his hand. You're helping people you don't even know. Outside, someone started singing the old jingle that played when he won races. Other voices joined in. In minutes, the entire crowd was singing. Roger couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They didn't forget. They didn't forget the champion, Bruno said. And now they know the man. Claude approached the group. Guys, there's a reporter outside who seems different from the others. She said she wants to do a serious story, not sensationalist. How so? Marianne asked. She said she also lost some on alcohol. Wants to tell the story respectfully. Roger wiped his eyes. What story? The story of how a champion became an even better person. He looked at the crowd outside, at the support signs, at the families who had come just to show affection. He remembered his daughter's words. Daddy, you always help people. All right, he said finally, but I'll speak my way. Bruno opened the gate. The crowd made respectful silence when Roger appeared. He walked in the middle of the sidewalk, surrounded by people who looked at him as if he were a resurrected hero. Everyone, he said, his voice coming out stronger than expected. Thank you for being here. I didn't expect anyone to still remember me. We never forgot, someone shouted. Roger Silva Eternal, another completed. He smiled for the first time in public after so many years. I'm not the pilot you knew anymore. I'm just a mechanic who tries to make a difference in people's lives. And you do, a woman shouted. My husband saw your videos and started believing in himself again. Roger felt his chest warm. Maybe that exposure wasn't just suffering. Maybe it was an opportunity to show that falls can become new beginnings. If my story can help someone not to give up, he said, looking directly at the cameras, then maybe it was worth going through all this. The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time in 15 years, Roger Silva felt complete again. A year after that day that changed everything, Roger stood in front of a building that seemed to come from his most impossible dreams. The golden plaque at the entrance shone under the morning sun. Roger Silva Rehabilitation and Social Workshop Center, hands at Transform. The complex had 3 floors. The first was a free mechanical workshop for low-income people. The second housed a treatment center for chemical dependency. And the third functioned as a technical school for underprivileged youth to learn trades. Marion approached him, carrying a bouquet of white flowers, the same ones he always took to his daughter's grave. "How do you feel?" "Like she's here with me," Roger replied, touching his chest, "seeing everything we managed to build." It was the day of the official inauguration. Hundreds of people crowded at the entrance. Ex-homeless people who had found work in the project, families who had their cars fixed for free, young people who had learned trades, people who had overcome alcoholism in the treatment center. Bruno arrived running, wearing a new uniform with the center's logo. "Roger, everything's ready inside. The first students of the technical school want to meet you." "How many are there?" he asked. 50 in the first class, all between 16 and 20 years old. Some came off the streets. Others never had the opportunity to study. Claude and Robert appeared shortly after. Robert had become responsible for the project's social media, documenting each transformation story. Claude coordinated the free workshop, along with a team of volunteer mechanics. "Today's numbers are impressive," Robert said excitedly. "In 1 year, we've served over 1,000 families in the free workshop, graduated 200 young people, and helped 300 people in the rehabilitation center. And there's more," Claude added. "That TV program that did the story about you brought donations from all over the country. People want to open similar centers in other cities." Roger smiled, but it was a different smile from the broken man who had been found under the overpass. It was the smile of someone who had found peace. At that moment, a family approached. It was Dr. Henry, Fernanda, and little Pedro, now a few years older. Uncle Roger. Pedro ran to him and hugged him. "Pedro, how you grown?" Roger picked him up. "And how's school?" "Very good. And Daddy said when I grow up, I can work here with you." Dr. Henry approached. "Roger, we can't thank you enough. That day you fixed our car didn't just save our trip to the hospital. It saved our faith in humanity and changed our lives forever. We decided to do volunteer work here every week." Fernanda added, "You don't need to thank me," Roger said, putting Pedro down. "You helped me as much as I helped you." A familiar car stopped in front of the center. Marcus, the Ferrari businessman, got out, but he wasn't alone. He brought a group of other business people with him. Roger Silva. He greeted effusively. "I brought friends who want to know about the project." Mr. Roger, a businesswoman, introduced herself. "I'm Anna Paula from Millennium Construction. We want to donate materials for you to expand the center." "And I," another man joined, "represent a network of dealerships. We want to provide parts at a discount for the social workshop." Roger was moved. "Guys, this is what you deserve," Marcus interrupted. "That day you fixed my Ferrari saved much more than a contract. It saved my perspective on what really matters in life." The official ceremony began. The city mayor was present along with councilmen, business people, journalists, and hundreds of ordinary people. But who drew the most attention was a special group that arrived at the end. They were ex-pilots and mechanics from Roger's golden days. "Golden hands," one of them shouted upon seeing him. "We finally found you." It was Sebastian, his former chief mechanic, now with white hair but a young smile. "Man, we looked for you for years. When we found out you were alive..." Roger hugged him emotionally. "Sebastian, how are you?" "I'm fine, but you're incredible. Look what you built." Other former companions approached. Pilots who had raced against him, mechanics who had worked on his team, journalists who had covered his victories. "Roger," a former pilot said, "we wanted to ask you something." "What?" "Come back to the tracks. As a consultant, as a trainer, as whatever you want. Brazilian Motorsports needs you." Roger looked around at the center he had built, at the people being helped, at Marianne, who had become like a daughter to him, at Bruno, Claude, and Robert, who were his new family. "Thank you for the invitation," he said. "But my place is here now. Here where I can make a real difference in people's lives." "But Roger," the pilot insisted, "you don't understand. I do understand, he interrupted gently. When I raced, I only helped myself. Here I help hundreds of people every day. Which victory do you think is worth more? The silence was respectful. Everyone understood that Roger had found something greater than trophies and medals. The mayor approached the microphone for the official speech. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to inaugurate a project that has already changed thousands of lives. The Roger Silva Center is not just a workplace. It's a symbol that it's never too late to start over. The crowd applauded. Robert was filming everything to document the historic moment. Now, the mayor continued, I'd like to invite Roger Silva himself to speak. Roger approached the microphone, looked at that crowd, and felt his chest tighten with emotion. 2 years ago, I was living under an overpass, lost in pain and alcohol. I thought my life was over. The crowd fell completely silent. But some special people showed me that falls aren't the end of stories. They're opportunities to start over better. He looked at Mary Ann, who was crying. A woman taught me that helping others heals our own pain. He looked at Bruno, Claude, and Robert. 3 young men gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it. He looked at the entire crowd. And hundreds of people showed me that a man's value isn't in what he lost, but in what he chooses to build after the loss. The applause started low and grew until it became deafening. This center isn't mine, Roger continued when the noise subsided. It's ours. From every person who believes in second chances, from every young person who wants to learn, from every family that needs help. He took from his pocket the crumpled photo of his daughter, the same one he had carried for years. And it's especially hers, he said, showing the image. Anna Beatrice, who at 8 years old taught me that life's greatest trophy is helping other people. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. So today I'm not just inaugurating a center, he concluded. I'm inaugurating a promise. The promise that as long as I have strength, no one who needs help will be abandoned. The explosion of applause was so intense it lasted several minutes. People cried openly. Others shouted words of support. Robert filmed everything, knowing that moment would go down in history. When the official ceremony ended, people began visiting the center. In the social workshop, families brought broken cars and left with problems solved for free. In the technical school, young people learned not just trades, but dignity and self-esteem. In the rehabilitation center, people fought against addictions with support from those who had already won the same battle. Mary Ann approached Roger, who was observing everything from a balcony on the 2nd floor. You did it. You achieved the impossible dream. We did it, he corrected. None of this would exist without you, without Bruno, without everyone who believed. And your daughter? What do you think she would say about all this? Roger smiled, looking at the photo. I think she would say, I knew you could do it, Daddy. I knew you're capable of fixing anything broken, including yourself, including myself. That afternoon, as the sun set over the Roger Silva Center, hundreds of people continued circulating through the floors. Ex-homeless people now working as mechanics, young people learning trades, families receiving free help, people overcoming dependencies. Robert posted the inauguration video with the title, From Overpass to Largest Social Center in the City, Roger Silva's Complete Transformation. In a few hours, it had millions of views and thousands of comments from people around the world inspired by the story. Bruno became technical director of the center. Claude became coordinator of the social workshop. Robert documented each transformation story, showing that miracles happen every day when people decide to help other people. Mary Ann created a foundation to replicate the model in other cities. In 5 years, there were similar centers in 10 American states. And Roger finally found peace. Every day he arrived early at the center, put on his mechanic's overalls, and worked side by side with people who, like him, had found a second chance. At night, before going home, he always visited the 3rd floor, where there was a small memorial with Anna Beatrice's photo. Another day fulfilling our promise. My daughter, he would whisper. More lives transformed, more people helped. And when he left the center, walking down the lit street, Roger Silva knew he had discovered life's most important truth. It doesn't matter how deep you fall. It's always possible to start over. And when you start over by helping others, you find something much greater than trophies or recognition. You find purpose. You find peace. You find the certainty that your life made a difference. 5 years after the inauguration, the Roger Silva Center had become an international reference in rehabilitation and social inclusion. But for Roger, the real success wasn't in numbers or awards. It was in the smile of each young person who learned a trade, in the gratitude of each family who received help, in the recovery of each person who overcame an addiction, in the certainty that Anna Beatriz, wherever she was proud of a father who never gave up honoring her memory. And so, the man who was once humiliated in a garage for asking to fix a car in exchange for food became living proof that the right hands, moved by the right heart, can fix much more than engines. They can fix lives, they can fix dreams, they can fix the world, one person at a time. The end.